Good evening. I am going to call to order the Newberg School Board meeting to order 29J, November 18th, 2025, and call to order, and we'll have the flag salute by Director Wolfer. Sorry, that was a mess. Okay, we're going to review the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or deletions?
Yeah, she's just taken over.
I know. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And as always, like to point out our fabulous donations from, let's see, who do we have this month? You know, and I'm not sure that this is always a complete list because I see a lot of donations that come up, people post on Facebook, but Versatile Plastics donated $1,000 for Newberg High School basketball. The Austin Family Foundation always stepping up with $9,700 for the community language program. This is the one I think I saw, which Crohn's Appliance Services donated a refrigerator to the amount of $1,200, and the Newberg Library Friends donated $5,700 to the Guadalajara trip. It was very exciting. And thanks to the many people who donate to teachers' requests for supplies and special things for their classrooms.
I move that the Newberg Dundee Public School Board of Directors approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carried. We have 5 board members present. So 5 yays. This is a time for public forum. I just saw somebody. I think that was Director Byerly.
Yep.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our reports and presentations. Jillian, you want to step on up?
Good evening. This evening, I am going to present to you the EL board report. This is the annual report that ODE puts out to school boards and school districts across Oregon. And in this report, I will be lifting some information about Oregon's multilingual learners and then sharing some information about our multilingual learners as it pertains to Newberg Dundee Public Schools. So again, legislatively required as per our ORS in there. I also included in the packet the entire report that ODE released with the entire state information. The report is also posted on our district website. So in Oregon, there are quite a few English learners, 62,522 students. In Newberg, we have 343 English learners, and that makes up about 8.5% of our total student population, as compared to the state at 11.5%. In Oregon, there's 247 different languages spoken in public schools, and we have 43 languages in our own school district. Predominantly English speaking is the top language. We also have a fair number of students who've moved in recently that are Vietnamese speakers. We have some Russian speakers and Ukrainian speakers as well. For students who have languages that we don't support internally, so we support Spanish internally, we utilize another third party to support those interpretations or translation needs for our families that might be speaking languages in addition to English and Spanish. And then for a little more on the data side, we have 23.6% of our English learners in our special education program. We still have, and I say still as this has been an ongoing trend, we don't have any active English learners in the tag programming, and that's definitely an opportunity for us to consider supporting how we assess students. Primarily, we do that at the third grade level, and then take a look at state testing information. So revisiting how students are identified as talented and gifted, especially after the third grade level, I think is an area that we have an opportunity in. And then I highlight our 19.2% of our ELs are also receiving programs from the Migrant Education Program through the WESD. And I highlight this because you can see it's a 10% increase over the state. And actually, one of the big assets we have in our multilingual learner program is the benefit of the support from the Migrant Education Program through the Willamette School Educational District, sorry. They support our graduation specialist at the high school. We also have a migrant program recruiter. They provide professional development for our staff. And one of the biggest pieces that they fund is our summer learning program that runs through the entire month of July. So definitely an opportunity for our students who are both supported by migrant and English learners is having opportunity to gain credits and academic support through those summer months. And then as we turn to our OSAS scores, you can see that in Oregon, English learners perform very low on the OSAS assessment, but we do have some opportunity to do some celebration in Newberg. Our third through fifth graders at 22.9% proficiency, and while that is still very low, it's definitely far ahead of the state, and so that's something the Multilingual Learner Department is really proud of and the work that we've done with students. And then middle school, 13.4%. The grade band 9 through 12 is a little bit smaller, and I should have started by saying this report is from data from 23-24 school year, so it's 2 years behind. So that as you hear more data tonight, please keep in mind this data is 23-24. The data you'll be hearing next from my colleagues is 24-25, so there is a little bit of difference and gap in this data, but during this particular year, our high school population was still really small. Since that time, we've had a giant increase in students that are newcomers and recent arrivals to the U.S. The population at the high school at this moment in time went from 17 students to now I think they're currently at 71. So we've had a giant increase in students at the secondary level moving into our district that are English learners. That'll be reflected in next year's report, but you'll also hear that from Holly in our report on OSAS for this year's data. And then as we shift to math, again, the scores are really low. We have a lot of opportunity and work still ahead of us, but also really proud that our English learners are outperforming the English learners as an average in the state, 19.1% at the elementary, 11.5 at middle school. And then again, we do have that really small population at 5%. Sorry, didn't hit that button quite right. Sorry, Jeremy. So again, their numbers 19.1 in the elementary, 11.5 at the middle level, and that less than 5% at the high school performance on OSAS. So some other information that we regularly talk about is attendance. Regular attendance, 72.3% for our English learners. Again, outperforming the state average. And then the regular attendance at elementary. And then for secondary, our attendance is calculated with middle school and high school combined. So that's a 66.2%. At the state level, they've broken it out. So their middle school average is 59.6 and the high school average is 44.8. So again, we're still doing really well with regular attendance at the high school and middle school levels, but definitely we're still looking for that above 90-95% average for all students. Ninth grade on track at 86.1%. And again, I attribute that to a lot of the services our multilingual learners do receive in the summer. In prior years, we've had, and in this year in particular, we had the Freshman Rising program where students that were incoming ninth graders had an opportunity to earn credits, but also students that participate in our federal program, Summer School, earn elective credit in English and math. And so this is really starting to support our focal populations and already being on track at the start of the school year. So they aren't having that experience of potentially becoming credit deficient because they have already gotten that started as incoming eighth graders. And we're really proud of the work they've done there. And Holly will talk a little bit more about that, but we've got some gap closure for our focal populations with our OSAS data. And that would be one of the contributing factors, along with our on-time graduation. So 86.4% of our multilingual learners graduate within 4 years. That state average is 68%. And then post-secondary enrollment, we have 54.9%, and the state average is 34.5%. So again, we want to see those numbers continuing to increase, but also we're doing a lot of really great work with our multilingual learner students in Newberg and the opportunities that they have. And one of those is our program model, which I want to talk to you about next. So that will orient you to this graph. That dotted blue line is how our native English speakers perform academically. And then these other colors that you see here, this bottom line is the red, kind of red-brown color, is a traditional pullout, so like self-contained ELD. So when kids are scheduled and it's just an ELD class, that happens at the high school level, but then also that used to be our model at the elementary level, where we did have self-contained English learning where it wasn't connected to content. The thing of note is the dual language programming. That's the dark blue line that you see. And students in the dual language program actually end up outperforming native English speakers due to the instruction that they have bilingually. And that's something that we're really proud of, and we attribute our average for our multilingual learners higher than the state because of our dual language programming. This will be the first year that our dual language students graduate from the high school. We know that we've got a lot of programming at the high school to do for dual language in terms of opportunity and the growth and where that program's going to go. But it's really supported students throughout their career in terms of not only their language acquisition, but also academic support. In some of the changes that we've had to make due to the budget, we did have to go back to our smaller schools where we have only 4 to 12 ELs in the entire school. And we did go back to self-contained English language development. We were doing co-teaching as one of our models. Co-teaching still happening at Maple Rush and Edwards. But our other elementaries did go back to self-contained. So one of the really important things about our programming is being able to provide that instruction embedded into content. And so for Edwards and Maple Rush, we are doing that in the English language arts program. So the ELD teacher will come in and teach together with the classroom teacher. That model was at all of our buildings, but again, due to the budget situation that we've had, we did have to make a cut back there just because the model wasn't sustainable with that small of a group of students. At the middle school level, we're trying actually something new this year. We used to have co-teaching, and now we've gone to integrated ELD. So that means the ELD teacher is the language arts teacher. And that model is happening for our dual language students. So on their English side of their learning in the English language arts, the ELD teacher is their language arts teacher. And so they're embedding that content naturally into the class. And then we do still have some co-teaching at Mountain View. At CV, they do have a self-contained course. We've got about 7 students at CV. It's a multi-grade class, and so that does become tricky. But again, with small numbers, being able to provide the best instruction is critical. And our ELD specialist there works really closely with the language arts teachers to continue to integrate that content into her self-contained instruction. And then at the high school, they're also doing integrated ELD with our dual language students. And then at the 9th and 10th grade, we offer co-teaching, and 11th and 12th grade is still self-contained. And that's definitely a tricky area that we've been navigating. We've been using a lot more often this year, and then we started last year, the opportunity to provide English language arts credit for students in an English language development course. Oregon passed a law that said if the content was the same level of rigor in ELD as it was in a traditional English language arts class, you could issue English language arts credit. And so we're looking at our programming there to ensure that there's rigor so that English learners don't have to take an ELD class plus an ELA class and in a 4-period schedule. That pretty quickly eliminates any opportunity for elective or CTE experience. So we're really working hard to design the instruction at the high school level to support our students. You will note in the Oregon ODE report, students who are still identified as active English learners drop out. and they are the least successful in high school. So it's really important that our students become language proficient or that we provide integrated support for students as they work to continue to acquire language at the secondary level. That is the gist of that ODE report. There's a lot more in there. So if you have any questions at this time, I would love those. But then if you have follow-up questions, definitely don't hesitate to ask those.
I think I beat out Saul. Just going back to the graph, what's the difference between two-way dual and one-way dual?
Yeah, so great question. In our program, when we start at kindergarten, 50% of the student population are native Spanish speakers and 50% of the population are native English speakers. So you have both languages working together. In a one-way model, it's typically all one language. So it's either all English students acquiring Spanish or native Spanish speakers acquiring Spanish. The model is really important because they need those peers on both sides to acquire English and Spanish. So the two-way is the difference of having that 50-50 makeup. Yeah.
Jillian, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just does the data on this graph represent Newberg students, or is this just a graph to show difference in outcomes by model?
Yeah, so this graph is from Thomas and Collier, and it's a national graph. It's not Newberg data.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the takeaway from this graph is celebrating that we have a two-way dual language program,
Mm-hmm.
that we have minimized where possible our pull-out program, our self-contained programs. But this data is not Newberg data.
This data is not Newberg data. It's
Okay.
national data.
Okay. I also noticed the content ELD versus pull-out ESL.
Mhm.
Do we refer to our classes as ELD, right?
Mhm.
Not ESL.
Mhm. Well,
Okay.
ESL, yeah, it's kind of like outdated language. English as a second language
Right.
would be ESL. English language development is ELD. I would say the biggest difference here is in a pull-out program, you're teaching like grammar in isolation. So content-based ELD is teaching language through content like science or social studies, language arts, another content area. We find that when kids are pulled out and they're taught language in isolation, it doesn't transfer back to their classroom. So then they get comfortable practicing it with the ELD teacher, but that it doesn't happen in their general education classroom experience. So then they start using that language in isolation. They're still quiet in the class.
So as we think about the different models that we use, I'm thinking about the dual language, I'm thinking about co-teaching, I'm thinking
Mhm.
about self-contained. Are we seeing outcomes similar to what's
Mhm.
being shown in this graph here in Newberg?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only thing that's not on this graph is the co-teaching and integrated ELD model. Those are fairly new, and the research is still coming out around those, but also shows the American teacher body of folks. I can't remember their exact acronym. Just put out an article this past July talking about co-teaching and the efficacy there. So there's a bunch of the data is really new for co-teaching. I would say it's a trend that really started occurring in the last 5 years post-COVID. So there's not a ton of data, but the data is finally starting to get published. So like I'm definitely looking forward to that graph being updated. But in terms of our own Newberg data, like there's definitely a difference between our students who are in dual language programs, the students who have co-taught instruction, and then the students who are only accessing through a pull-out model.
Okay. And then I have a lot more questions, but I'll try to ask just a couple. What are we seeing in terms of ELPA? How many students are entering with English learner status? How many students are we exiting? What are the ways that our general education classroom teachers are working with English learners? What sorts of strategies are we using there?
Do you want me to answer all those right now?
Uh,
So I'll be peel that apart. Our ELPA exit rate is around 32% per year. We definitely have a lot of long-term English learners. So long-term English learners, anyone that's been in the ELD program for more than 5 years. And I think like that's one of the biggest pieces we have that we're facing at the middle level. But the majority of our ELs at the high school are recent arrivals or newcomers or students who've moved in, especially from like we've had a lot of move-ins from McMinnville. So So there is some of those pieces, but then in terms of like strategies, our programming is based off a lot of the GLAD model. We utilize teaching for biliteracy. We have a lot of consultants out in the field that we've worked with in the past. We have the Karen Beeman group. So like, there's been a lot of research that's gone into the strategies and models. I would say the majority of our ELs do sit in our dual language program. So like in terms of it being utilized as intended or designed, like that's definitely occurring. We have approximately 126 ELs at Edwards out of the 343 we have in the district. Mabel Rush has about 30 students as the next largest elementary. And then from there, it trickles down between like 4 and 12 at our other buildings. CV again has 7 kids. Mountain View has about 60 this year, and the high school is sitting at about 75 this year. So, strategies vary. We've also done some professional development around co-teaching for anyone who is engaging in the co-teaching model. But again, there is still always work to do. The general education experience in terms of those strategies, though, has definitely increased with integrated ELD and co-teaching.
Okay, thank you.
Not to get super in the weeds on this graph, but I'm curious, when it says long-term achievement, what are we talking about explicitly with that? I don't know what NCE is. Or is this just full school outcomes? Is it?
Yes. So it's nationally normed data, a study from how students perform first grade through the 11th grade. And so they're looking at all of those testing years and have tracked students and how they perform in each of the models. So it's basically a giant digest of those student outcomes.
So we should expect to see good outcomes on, are we talking about like OSAS tests and things like that, and again, not to get too into the weeds, but we're expecting those kids, I guess, English and non-English starters who have gone through the two-way dual to end up having roughly higher scores on those tests?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is the biggest thing to note, is that pull-out model actually has kids go in reverse after about that 2nd, 3rd grade year. So the model and how you're engaging and learning matters.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your patience as I try to make sense of this. I feel like this graph maybe sends a different message than what's intended. And the reason I say that is hearing you say that a bulk of our English learners are in a two-way immersion dual language program. And those students in this model outperform most students. I feel like that's not consistent with the data that we showed earlier with OSAS as one measure. I don't feel like that's the take-home message here, right? Like I would say most of our students in grades 3 through 5 are outperforming 19.1%. Is that true? So I don't really know what to make of that graph.
If I may.
Yeah.
Part of what that graph did show, though, is that doesn't actually get there until high school, that they're below that, the average 50 line, that I think it was saying that regular English learners would be at the 50 level, and they pass that line eventually, but not until I believe it was 9th grade.
So less than 5% in grades 9 through 12?
Well, again, that was with 17 students, and
no dual language
again,
model.
I'm not trying, I'm saying that to look at the 19.1 would be to say that, yeah, they were, I think, 25 below the 50, Again, I don't know what NCE exactly stands for, so it's hard to wrap my head around that, but it will be interesting to see the information.
Yeah, like my kids have gone through the dual language model. Like they've gone through that program until high school. I'm a big proponent of that. I just am trying to understand, like, why include that? That graph feels really misleading to me. It feels aspirational, like we're trying to justify the dual language program. That's great. Our data doesn't seem to line up with that yet.
So again, that's actually a graph that's talking about, that is national research. That is what they found. That is why justifies why we're doing the dual language program as opposed to pull out. Now, our results in it, it's not connected to that graph. So that is the nationally normed data that was done. I don't even know when the last time they tested, but basically that's just basically saying why we're choosing the dual language. Now our performance in it's different. That's what she presented. There isn't really a connection to that. There are some things that we do, I think, see, which is our expectations on kids who are learning 2 languages in the 2nd and 3rd grade. There's a different expectation on where they're going to score. As they move through the program, they're now using 2 languages where other students are using 1 language. So there's some differences in testing, but you are correct. That last graph is not connected to our data, except nationally, this is the trend that they see. Now, our performance is different.
But I would also say it's still outperforming the state. Like, and the state is trending more towards dual language models. So like that graph wasn't necessarily about OSAS scores, but about why we have the models operating in the district that we have.
Okay, that's really helpful because I spent most of when you were talking about this thinking that was our data and then trying to make sense of what you had shown earlier. So that's really helpful. So the purpose of this graph is to help justify that we have a dual language program, that we continue to invest in that program. And at some point, we're hoping that our data from those students will outperform
Yes.
that of, okay.
Again, may I ask, I mean, I know that Thomas and Collier did the data and they made the graph, but it's also 15, 16 years old. Is anybody going to be doing a newer model or lately? I mean,
So the research around dual language still supports this data.
Sure.
I think the work that needs to be done, which is really still coming out really since 2022. And then again, the last report that I saw was just this past July 2025. Having that long-term data though, from kindergarten through 12th grade. So when you're thinking about that span of time, 12 years, like you've got to follow the kids through. So co-teaching wasn't really a widely used tool for instruction along with integrated ELD until the recent years. So like I would expect this graph to morph and change as more research is done. But I did specifically look for that data before I presented to you all because it hasn't been in existence around specifically co-teaching and integrated ELD. And literally this week when I looked again, there is more and more coming out, but like I'd like to see it peer reviewed versus journals like the Teachers Union. I'm glad to see it, but also want to see more. Like we need more data.
yep. Thank you.
Are we finished with Jillian? Okay. I think you're up next. We get to hear about our special programs reports. Doctor.
First of all, I'll turn the mic on. It's good to see you all, and thank you so much for inviting me to present tonight. I am excited to tell you about some of the big things that we have going on in special programs right now. I thought I'd just start, just in case, somebody had forgotten what we do in special programs, just to ground us again, but our biggest focus obviously is on special education K through age 21, but we also are responsible for birth to 5. We partner with the Willamette Educational Service District to do all of our child finds, so all of our eligibilities and provide services, but we're in constant contact with them, so we know who's coming our way. We are in charge of supporting the comprehensive counseling program, Section 504, which is supported by counselors, behavior intervention and support, health services, our school-based health center, and crisis response. So those are our big buckets. There's a lot of things that go along with those things. The team that supports all of those programs are made up mostly of special educators and counselors, but we have a lot of specialists that we work with as. Oh, sorry, guys. Okay, I'll get used to this. I haven't presented in this space before. we have a lot of people that we're working with all the time. So in special programs, we are supporting the needs of our students for access. So pretty much everything outside of core, whatever a student needs in order to access core instruction is our focus. Right now, most of our support is through individual student plans. And right now we have, I just ran a report today, we have 682 students on individual education plans, so in special education. And I wanted to draw your attention that 17% of our entire population. The state pays us for 11%. So just wanted you to be aware of that since budget season is coming. We have 283 students on 504 plans, or that's 293. We have 2 nurses that support 465 health plans, and 90 of those health plans are life-threatening health plans. And then we have a whole bunch of students on behavior support plans. I was not able to bring those numbers because our system, they're not in a way that I can pull a report. We're going to work on that. So when I got here last spring, I made it a priority just to sit and listen. So I met with a lot of people and I learned a lot of things. I met with staff. I met with special education staff, both licensed and classified. I met with general education teachers. I met with administrators, parents, community members. I met in one-on-one settings and big groups and listening sessions, and I learned a lot. And overwhelmingly, I was impressed. It was really positive. I learned that the people in this community really care about kids. I learned that our staff, they're amazing. They are committed, like no staff I've worked with before, to doing what's best for students. They work really hard. So I was just so impressed and so excited to be here. When I met with parents, overwhelmingly, I heard support, their support for the district and for the staff. I was blown away by it, to be honest. And I was excited to be here. I think I told Dave multiple times, it just feels so good to be in a community that is so supportive of a district. So I've been really excited about that. So I took all that information. We also had a thought exchange survey that you had given out shortly before I came. So I looked at that information. When I got here, we were in the middle of 2 different ODE audits. One was around special education compliance, and the other was around special education budgeting. So that was information. I listened and learned a lot there. And I also did my own personal program review. So I found there was some themes that I came across. So there was lots of positive, but there were 3 big areas of need that I found from feedback from people that I talked to, from those ODE audits, and just from my own program review. So really, these 3 big things seemed like the areas that we needed to focus on. So one was just really working on articulating our inclusive practices for students with disabilities and what that continuum of supports across the system looks like. The second was improving clarity and alignment of systems and processes, especially around compliance, both for special education, 504, and some of our other programs that we support. And then the third big theme was that we needed to enhance or articulate our systems for effective behavior support. So then Dave asked all of us in our different departments to think about what big rocks we wanted to work on this year. So kind of taking that and thinking about all of the things that I had learned, I came up with these big rocks. So this year, these are what we're focusing on in the department. And when I say the department, I'm talking about all of those people that I talked about before. I do not do this work by myself. It would be impossible. So we want to increase public awareness and understanding of our special programs across the board, and that includes our health programs, everything that we're doing. Articulate our special education continuum of support. That seemed really important, especially in the listening sessions. There was a lot of confusion around how are we supporting our students with disabilities. We have to work on special ed compliance because it's the right thing to do, but also because ODE really wants us to. And this is super exciting, we're working on kind of a reset in our transition program. And then another thing that we learned through our compliance audit was that we had some work to do on transition planning, which really starts in 8th grade for students with disabilities. And then, of course, the budget. And then just articulating our tiered system of behavioral health and wellness. So I'm just going to kind of go quickly through some of those big rocks. I could talk all night long. I'm super passionate about this. We're having a lot of fun. But this one of the big rocks of increasing in awareness. Early on, I talked to Mark Brown, and together we came up with, you know what? One really fast way to increase awareness in a really positive way is to turn our high school into a unified champion school. And so we're working on that. We're on our way. We've already established a unified PE class, and that's what these pictures are from. This is from our unified PE class at the high school. We've also done that at one of our middle schools. So we now have a middle school and a high school unified PE class. We are going to have a unified basketball team this year and a unified track team. And if you don't know what unified is really, you just partner up students with disabilities and typical peers, and they do things together, fun things. So the other things that we need to work on is student leadership. So we'll need to make sure that we have students with disability represented in our student leadership teams. And then whole school engagement. So we're well on our way, and we're super excited about that. Anyway, you'll be hearing more. We'll be inviting you to all the fun stuff that we do for that. Another big rock is our continuum of services. So we have worked really hard with our elementary schools this year to kind of resurrect something that was here before. There was classes or spaces that had been set up 5 or 6 years ago, and they were called developmental learning centers. And those, we kind of lost those along the way. I think COVID probably had an impact on that. And those spaces really are places where students who first belong in a general education class, but they have more needs than can be provided for them in the general education class, places where they can come and work on the things that they really need to be successful. So we've set up those spaces in each of our elementary schools. Our teams have worked so hard on this. It's been really, really fun. It's a lot of physical work. We had to set up the spaces. And then in each one of those spaces, we have different stations where students can come and work on things like gross motor skills, fine motor skills. They can come and work on their specially designed instruction with a teacher or in a small group. And so we've been doing that. And almost instantly, we have seen positive results. The kids just love it. They come in, they're learning to self-regulate, all the good things so that they can be successful in the general education classroom. It's been very exciting. And we'd love to have you pop into one of those if you're ever in a building. SAIL. So a lot is going on at SAIL. We're having a lot of fun there. So if you don't know what SAIL is, it's our transition program. We support students age 18 to 21. These students are students with disabilities who graduate with something other than a regular diploma, so a modified diploma, extended diploma, or a certificate of attendance. They qualify for services till they're 21. Our goal for every student there is meaningful employment. We don't always accomplish that in 3 years, but because we know we can't always accomplish that, we have a huge focus on building partnerships with folk rehab and DD services and making sure students, we call them clients at 18 to 21, but making sure our clients are connected with those outside partners so that when they leave us at 21, if they haven't got meaningful employment already, they have somebody who continues the work. So already this year, we've started to develop some partnerships. We have students who are going in and doing volunteer or work experiences at Thriftway. So we're really excited about that partnership. We have students who are volunteering at our thrift store. We have students who actually our food services department has been great, and we have some students doing work experiences with food services. They've got their food handler cards so that they can do that. And we're continuing to look for more partnerships. So if you know of anybody, please reach out to me. I would be happy to talk to them and possibly develop a work site for our students. These pictures I wanted to highlight. This is really fun. One of almost every student in the program right now has a goal around learning to use public transportation. And so as they've been going out and practicing, they discovered that some of the sidewalks were not accessible. And so they kind of took it upon themselves to start tracking that. And so they've been mapping as they go around, practicing their public transportation. They've been mapping where their friends cannot access because of the sidewalks are not wheelchair friendly. So I don't know what the result of that is going to be, but I'm hoping maybe someday they'll be presenting to the city about that. We'll see how it goes. But they're having a lot of fun with that. And what I love to see is how eager they are to help each other and make sure that everyone can access the city. So that's been fun.
And may I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah,
SAIL is an acronym. What does that stand for?
that is a really good question. I actually asked someone that the other day. I did not name SAIL, and I don't know.
Okay.
And the person I asked didn't know either. So
Okay.
I can hopefully find out. Okay.
It's support advocacy for independence in life.
Okay. There you go.
Google, gotta love it.
All right. Today they were actually, I was at a meeting at SAIL and they were actually talking about how they were going to take the tree icon and make it SAIL friendly. So I don't know what they're going to come up with. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, let me go. The other big rock that we're working on is articulating our tiered system of behavioral health and wellness from kindergarten to age 21. We hired Desiree Alloway. I don't know if you know her, but anyways, we hired her this year, and she as our behavioral health and wellness and special education coordinator. And so she's taking the lead on this, and she's doing a great job. And we're still at the beginnings of it, but we're hoping to have a much more articulated, clear system, tiered system of support for students. Backwards. And then the last big rocks that I wanted to talk about was about compliance. It's not super fun, although I kind of like it. So we worked really hard over the summer and we updated manuals. We've updated all of our systems and processes and special education manuals, 504 manuals, a resource guide. The health team has updated manual, our school psychologists. Just across the board, we've been working on our systems and processes and making sure that they were aligned and that they were aligned with a bunch of new special education type laws that have come out in the last few years. We have a monthly newsletter where we continue to send out updates and make sure that everybody understands the compliance expectations. We have started micro PDs where it's hard to find time to do professional development. So we're going to do, and we've already started micro PDs where we find 15-minute chunks of time to meet with teams, and we have like a theme like this. Right now we're working on re-eval planning and the whole process around re-eval planning for special education. So it's just a 15-minute micro PD that we're going around to each building team and providing. And then I wanted to highlight something we did a special education welcome back. And this little thing on here, kindness is magic. And I'm going to pass it around because I brought you guys one. One of our students at the high school named Regan Moore is an artist. So this is her art and she's had it made into stickers. So I brought you all a sticker.
She's a really fabulous
yeah.
artist.
She is. From Regan. So, and I wanted to tell you, it was great at the special education welcome back. We had all licensed special educators for 4.5 hours, 5 hours. And we really focused in on these systems and processes. And the SEAC, the special education parent group, found out we were doing that. And so they made up little packages of things for all of our teachers, and inside of them were those stickers. So it was really great. I think the special educators felt very supported by the parents to have that little gift bag when they showed back up for work. So, and then finally, our other big rock is the budget, and we're working on that every day. So those are my big rocks for this year. And I kind of just wanted to say again that all of this is only happening because of the very hard work of the staff, the licensed and classified staff that supports all of the students who benefit from special programs.
So Celeste is listening. She's still trying to replace the tires. Her first question was, and then she listened to what you said, but I think I'll read the first one. And then the second one is, what's kind of our vision for mental health support? And then she said, okay, based on the fact that Desiree is kind of working on that part, my follow-up question would be, when can we expect to hear about kind of a plan, components, and tiers? It's such a tough mental health crisis for kids and teens right now.
Yeah, that's a really great question. That is something where we're actively working on. I do think that our hope is to have a draft of something by the end of this school year, so we can come back to the board with that.
And do you mean December or do you mean end of the school year? 20, okay.
Yeah, 2026 in the
Okay.
spring. Yeah. We have a lot of components in place. I mean, amazing actual components in place in this district for mental health. It's just that it's not clearly articulated in one spot where we can talk about it. So that's really what we're working on.
So then maybe we could look towards the spring for some type of presentation, because we did really talk about our concerns about bullying and the mental health of students in school and feeling supported and feeling safe. And I know that was a big thing with Director Wolfer as well. So maybe that's something we could look towards in the
Yeah,
spring.
absolutely.
And does counseling fall under this as well? I remember you had the list in the beginning. So we
Mhm.
had a wonderful presentation and new plan from counseling last year. And I think it would be meaningful for us to hear sort of this school year, at the end of the school year, how that plan implementation went and what feedback they have from that as well. So just throwing that out there. I just wanted to say that I was lucky enough to participate in some of those listening sessions last spring when you first arrived, and my family accesses a lot of the SPED services in this district, and we have a lot of close friends and peers who do as well. And I would like to commend you, because I have heard a lot of feedback in our community of parents specifically feeling more heard and more in the know. And I think that is a movement that is really important to our community. And I'm really, really grateful for the work that you've done, and obviously the whole team. And I'm just so excited about where this can continue to go. I think you guys are doing incredible work. I also have a question. Has SAIL reached out to the city of Newberg about their sidewalk planning?
Not yet.
I know
We know the people.
This community development team over there is going to be just thrilled to hear this.
Yeah.
So we'd be happy to help make that connection. But that idea thrills me. My family lives in this area and around Edwards. We often see a lot of our SAIL clients walking around and being part of the community. I just think it's such a wonderful asset that we have here.
Yeah. When you see them carrying clipboards now, you know what
Now I know what they're doing. I love it.
actually, yes.
Because we see them around here, and our sidewalks around here in this neighborhood do need help. So I'm on board with that.
Thank you for the information. It's really helpful. I have two questions, and you can take them in any order you want. What have we learned from the audit process that's helped to improve our programs and how we serve students? And what kind of a similar question as I had for Jillian, how are our teachers supported in teaching in inclusive classrooms? What kinds of professional learning do they receive? How is that going, particularly for new teachers?
Yeah, I'll start with the audit because that's a really easy one. So when you go through an ODE compliance audit, they come back with very specific things that you need to work on, which I believe that compliance is the mechanism that we use to really support students well. So I always look at it as a great opportunity to circle back to staff and to retrain and to make sure everybody understands the processes, because we know that those were created at one point to make sure students had access, right? So that's the learning, is that we always have an opportunity, and we did that at our welcome back, and then we're continuing to do that in our micro PDs, just to make sure that we're, in fact, tomorrow morning early, I'm going to be training working with the high school team on transition. So we just constantly are coming back to it and making sure that we're all on the same page. So compliance is the easy answer. We are working with the Department of Teaching and Learning on universal design for learning. And so I'm sure you've heard some of that. We started that professional development in the fall when we all came back, and we're continuing that work. And so that's really the focus for supporting and providing professional development for inclusive spaces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a few questions. Thank you so much for your
Mhm.
presentation. I'm interested in the child find and what that looks like and how we go about that. I think what the ESD was be responsible for like 0 to 5, yeah?
Yeah.
More so than us.
Yeah, well, we're legally responsible for 0 to 5, but we partner with the
Yeah.
ESD. They're kind of like like logistically responsible for it. But we do things like we send out child find notices in newspapers. We have a child find notice on the website. Doctors, pediatricians are aware of child find, and so they will refer students to the process, or not students, they're not students at that point, but they'll refer families to the process. It all gets referred straight to the ESD at this point. That's new for us this year. Last year, we did it in district.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is there any like outreach that we are doing specifically on our part, just out of curiosity, or is it just kind of a
It's basically,
passively out
yeah,
there?
basically it happens mainly at the pediatrician level,
Okay.
where they are working with the family and they'll refer them for a child find evaluation.
And so we just passed a few special education policies today. One of them was IGBAH, the evaluation procedures. I'm curious at what that looks like for a parent to, because a lot of this is talking about the district identifying, but what does it look like for a parent to request an evaluation for their child?
Yeah.
Is there a formal?
Well, there's very specific laws and rules in the IDEA for this. So parents can request an evaluation. The district then will respond, and we have a limited amount of time to respond. The response isn't necessarily, yes, we're going to evaluate. We do have to meet with the parents and look at what data they're bringing to the table to request evaluation. Sometimes we look at it and we're like, oh, we know what's going on and we can intervene over here and we don't need to move forward with special education evaluation. Other times we look at it and we're like, yeah, this is a really good referral. And so we sign consent. Once parents sign consent for evaluation, we have 60 school days to finish it. And then at that point, we decide, is a student eligible or not? And if they are eligible, they become a student with an IEP.
And so is that like, is there an AR that goes along with this that would be like a form they fill out, or do they just like talk to the teachers at their schools?
They can, no, it's not really in an AR. They can request it, and they do all the time. They can request it in person. They can request it in writing. It just needs to get to oftentimes it comes to the general education teacher. It just gets to the team and then we respond.
Perfect. Yeah, and then I guess just I'm interested in the compliance process, like what it looks like to have these, files put away. Can parents ask for those files that after they've had an evaluation, if they're curious on how it was determined? Is that?
Yeah. So parents are always part of the process. So, and the paperwork is we always send home a copy of the paperwork. Yep. They're absolutely a part of the IEP evaluation team.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
We can't do it without them. That it?
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're
I don't know if
welcome.
anybody has any more questions, but you are really a great addition to the district, and I echo Aubrey's comments. I know that the original 5 of us, when we were running there was a lot of concern about the care for students in the district from the parents, and we've met with parents, and it was really heartbreaking to hear a lot of their stories, and it just feels that has been alleviated, that they're just feeling so much more support. So thank you for bringing that leadership to the district. And I that is not to discount the important work that was being done. It's just that I feel like that leadership level, just you've elevated it in a way that is just really important. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And we have lots of work to do. But we're having fun. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so the next one is the Rennie Field lease, and are we asking to, okay. I do want to say that I think I potentially have conflict on that particular issue. So just putting that out there, and I will confirm that by consulting with somebody. But let's hear what you have to say about the lease.
Sure. All right, so what's in front of you is lease for Rennie Field to our west. And this is coming just for your review, basically to get your eyes on it. The next time it comes, it will be after the CPRD board has reviewed and will probably have their signature on it. It'll come to us for final signature. And why we're doing a lease, well, a little bit of background. So back in 2022, I don't have a whole lot of information on this, but enough. The district and CPRD applied for a grant through the legislature appropriated through the Oregon Parks and Recreation District. Originally, both granted $750,000. The district's already received that money. However, CPRD has not received it just yet, and they've since reapplied or somehow changed their application to get $1 million. So they're getting $1 million. However, before they get the money, Oregon Parks and Recreation specified that they have to have a lease for the property. We currently have an intergovernmental agreement in place, which this lease models the same, very similar language. But for them to get that money, they have to have a specific lease. So what's in front of you is essentially a lease with a lot of the same language in the IGA. The IGA doesn't go away. This is just a lease agreement for them to use that.
Nate, before we go further, what do we mean by Rennie Field?
So Rennie Field is the property to our west of our portable and tennis courts here, between here and the physical plant. The plat used to be Rennie School years ago, but then after earthquakes, that building went to a point where they had to take it down. So right now CPRD uses those fields for a lot of their sports and activities. Newberg High School Rugby uses it. There's softball, baseball fields there as well.
Well, in particular, this lease is for what part of Rennie Field? We're not talking about the whole Rennie Field, because there's a middle school plotted on there and there's other things. So we've been in our negotiations with CPRD. What we're talking about here is basically the track. We're still working on them to get, when it comes back, it needs to have that, what the $1 million and the $750 is going to be spent on. That's the lease. It's that part of the property. The other parts, we still have a lot of things to figure out. We're not leasing that part of this. So I just want to make that really clear as we are moving in it. And before we do any signatures, we'll make that very clear. Like, what part specifically are we talking about? It's a very big piece of land. So.
And we're clear with CPRD about this conversation because they're having the open house tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so just want to make sure that that's.
No, we've been,
Okay.
I've had very direct conversations about this because of, we're supportive of this, the track, the new turf field. Those things are supportive for the school district, supportive for the community. But we also, it's a big plot of land, and putting a 30-year lease on the whole thing, that's not what we've come to an agreement around. So just, we'll get you, when it comes back to you, you'll see some more specifics about it. That's why I was kind of heading towards that. What do we mean by Rennie Field? Because it's a big plot.
I was gonna say, to help with that, is there like certain lot numbers that we can associate that with, or a surveyed area
Yeah.
to be identified?
On the pictures that I've seen, there's basically kind of 4 areas. The track, a space here, the middle school where the middle school will go, and then there's a 4th area over here. That's probably got to be parking for us because I think on the plan that I saw had like 30 parking spots for a middle school, and that's, you know, not going to fly. So, but again, we're still kind of, we got to get the language so that it pretty much lays out the track portion of this.
So what's not in here is Exhibit A, which is going to be the outline of the areas that we're talking about. So, and again, we're not committed to anything in this until we sign. So, and I've been dealing with Laura, who's representing them on this lease process. And so that's our next meeting is on that piece. So something else I was going to point out in here that's different from the IGA, and that is water and sanitary sewer charges. I wanted to call that one out because they want to build a bathroom there, and that would become an operational cost for us. And I said, we're not going to take on any operational costs for this. And so we added in there that they will be responsible for the meter, for keeping up that bathroom, etc. So that's not in the IGA. I think that's pretty much it on that.
I have some questions. So was our previous IGA also 25 years? I couldn't remember. I know we were trying to go shoot shorter, but then I think we had to go longer.
Yeah, so the 2054 on page is in here somewhere. Anyways, it's the same date as in the IGA. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So we bumped it to a 30-year, not 25.
So the OPRD is requiring a 25-year lease, but the
Okay.
IGA was for longer.
Okay.
So this condition on them getting the money was not in place or not imposed at that time.
And why the difference between a lease and IGA?
To get the money. I think it's just my guess is OPRD wants to ensure that the facility is going to be there and that they have the place to have it for a certain period of time before they grant them.
Do we know if that requirement was there when we originally talked about this?
I don't know.
Here's my speculation.
Yeah.
I believe somebody on the CPRD board is actually on the OPRD board too. And I
Okay.
don't want to make sure this is not retroactive or this is not something that's come up now that should have been disclosed then. And I'm just concerned. So
Yeah.
if you can maybe suss that out a little bit more
Mhm.
and just,
Yeah, that's a potential conflict of
Yes.
interest. Yeah. I will definitely find that out.
Yeah, because I know I and one of the old board members, we were kind of the facilities committee back then, and we were part of that. And well, not the initial negotiation, but some of those discussions once I came on board. So I might be a little bit more intimately familiar with some of the discussions that happened. So
Am I wrong to remember that it was a larger piece of land that we originally started with the IGA? And that there was more outs with in case we did need to do something, we had clear outs to make sure that we had no problems. I assume with this making it smaller plot of land, that won't impact that, but I assume that would be the difference with the lease compared to the IGA is that we don't have necessarily clear outs if we say, in 20 years, hey, no, our school needs to be bigger than we thought. And now we need all of this land. I'm curious what the difference is explicitly between the lease and the IGA other than in name only.
If we tear up, I mean, again, I think the track is a great thing for a middle school, so I don't
Yeah.
think we're going into that space. But if we do tear up that space, then we got to make the organizations right. So it's like we got to pay back the grant money that we've received to do this would be what would need to happen.
And then do we still have the first rights usage of the space? Is that
It's always going to be our property. We're the owners of the land, which this says leaseor, but yeah, so it's
Perfect.
always going to be ours. So anything we do, sorry.
No, but you're doing good.
Okay. We have a good relationship with CPRD, Dave has a good relationship with Clay there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be communicating with them about these changes or things that come up. We don't suddenly generally have 400 middle schoolers to
Sure.
show up in Newberg.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
I remember having a
some time.
specific conversation with some of our lawyers about, even if that isn't something typical, due to what we are, it's important that we
Yeah.
have that as an option. And one of the, just last quick one, I think was in the IGA, we had a big discussion about the upkeep of those facilities, but it felt like before it was more facilities, it was going to be bathrooms and food station and pickleball courts. So I don't know how much more is needed in that, but I wanted to make sure that we still have
So
that.
this
same
doesn't
plan.
replace the IGA. The IGA is
Okay.
still in place. This is just meeting the lease terms that they had that OPRD was pushing.
So which one supersedes which one?
So a couple of things, there's multiple IGAs.
Yeah, so that's what I'm
So
saying.
that's what I want to clear up, which is, so the lease here is what they need for us to complete this project, which is the track and the turf.
Mhm.
Now, we have an IGA for the usage of our facilities and the usage of their facilities. That's actually hasn't been re-upped in a while, so it's on our agenda to actually sit down and kind of talk through this. So the usage of our facilities and whether or not we're paying for custodial and all of those kinds of things, we actually still need to kind of hammer out this spring. So that's actually something that we'll be working on. And then we did sign an IGA of how we would use Rennie Field. But I think this is really what they're saying they need for us to move forward. So this, I think, is actually the document on the usage of that field that will be superseding.
And the language in here mirrors what's in the IGA with the exception of the water and sanitary piece. So with the idea was to make the language parallel so that they weren't at odds, like one didn't have, aside from that. And they're both agreements, you know, the different types of agreements, but they're still agreements that we're agreeing to and they're agreeing to.
So I thought one of the stipulations was like when Mark was assistant principal and AD director, that I think there was a thing that getting back to Director Allen, thank you. Say chair, but that's all right. Director Allen's comments is that I think there was an agreement that it like during the appropriate like schoolish hours or whatever, like we would have priority over that field.
Yeah.
That's same. That's in here
Yeah,
as well.
that is in here. Okay, I'm scanning. I just don't see it. So
And maybe I should just go to this open house, but I am curious. The now 1.75 million. I felt like when we first were talking about this, this was like that well covers the track, yeah. Maybe not, or the field.
I don't.
I thought that amount was based on a lot more things going in. So now I'm just interested in, because I feel like our original IGA was about, like, the blueprint was a massive layout. So I'm just interested in how we're going to spend our
There-
750,000.
So there is a blueprint that has multiple phases on it. I think the one that they're currently talking about is the track. So that's the piece that I think is, and I'll be at the open house tomorrow night too, so that we'll find out more too.
from what I recall in conversations, the even the 1.5 at the time was not going to cover everything because that was just going to cover the say maybe a half to 2/3 of the overall cost, even with the first phase, because they're probably going to have to retro do the whole road and sidewalks and other stuff. And so by the time you incorporate all that, there was going to be funds coming out of CPRD's pocket as well. Even though we're focused on the grants side of it, that wasn't going to cover the full cost even for phase one. So
here's a little history. When we first installed the turf field and track in Newberg High School in 2012, we originally budgeted for 1.2 million. It ended up being 1.5, and that was back in 2012. And so I don't know that it probably has gone up since then.
So last question, is there any other funds that we have in agreement that we're supposed to be putting in other than the grant? Perfect.
All
The-
right. Go ahead.
Sorry, Deb, I wasn't quick enough. So the track and the field inside the track is what we're talking about here. I know there are some baseball fields that kind of go right up against the the track, and then on the other side is, you know, some green space. Will we have to put up anything to separate those spaces? Like,
You mean when we build a school there or? in
no,
general?
I mean for the as part of the facility use and what goes in there, is there are we on the hook to put up a fence or anything like that to separate what is going to be the improved space that CPRD is leasing versus what is still solely Newberg School District space? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we haven't agreed to any design yet. So that's one of the pieces these dollars can go towards is design. And so they're going to have to put a plan together, an architectural plan of how it's going to happen. And my hope is that we're a part of that. We'll have someone be a part of that. And so there's no detail at that level
Okay.
that I've seen.
And then in terms of, I'm sure we've covered this in previous budget meetings and I just don't remember, the 750,000 that we're contributing, is that coming through construction excise tax? Is that something we've already budgeted
It
for?
was a
Like,
grant that we received, the $750,000, and it's been in a special revenue fund since we received it.
great.
So it's earned some interest as well, but
Okay. So we have, just to be clear, we have that money.
We
This
do.
isn't money we're going to have to come up with.
correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's really important to communicate in these times.
Yes.
And one last quick question. We're gonna have the exhibit A before we
Yeah.
look at this again?
Yeah.
Or when we look at this again?
Before you sign it, you will
Yes,
have it.
okay.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Because that's part of the agreement.
Will this exhibit A be the expanded also where the middle school layout could be, the footprint may be? Or just specifically that?
They may infer that, but there's no solid
If-
plan.
Why, I think it would be good for, I mean, I know we're talking about the future plans stuff too, and I was like, well, it'd just be good to know if
I
you have
I
it.
have some of those other pictures, so I can
Okay.
put those together for folks. I'm hoping that what this agreement, that exhibit A is gonna basically just be what we're agreeing to.
Mhm.
That's my hope there, but let me see what we can figure out. But we can get you some of the other stuff so you kind of see what they're talking about and what we've been negotiating with them around, which is, yeah, we're not gonna, there's pieces of property that we can't put a lease on.
I'm glad to see the water and sanitary sewer charges added. I'm curious if there's, my original understanding of the project was that there would be lighting. And are there additional stipulations for other utilities and who would be responsible for those?
No, it's a good point though. Yeah. So when I will bring that back to them.
May I ask who all is gonna be there tomorrow night, just so we can plan ahead?
Well, and
I'll be there.
if you're not there tomorrow, there is a virtual one the next
Thur-
day,
Thursday.
Thursday.
Nice.
And if you see anything that refers to Rennie Field, Rennie Park,
What? What'd you say?
Rennie, it's not to be called Rennie Park.
Oh,
There was a series of documents that they were referring to as Rennie Park, and that's not Rennie Park, it's Rennie Field. It's a big difference.
thank you.
Moving on. I think, are we good to move on from?
Took a breather.
From this, okay. We'll all know more tomorrow if we don't. So Nate, you want to talk about the financial report?
Yes. All right, so I feel like this has been a long time coming as we've been going through this year. I was just lamenting to Dave how even though I'm not making an excuse, but the federal shutdown has even caused issues with our audit. And so our audit has been delayed, and typically there's triggers that happen as we get information back from our auditors that push us to the next phase. And one of the things, not getting our financial reports back is that final fund balance, any entries in the last year trigger us to start reevaluating. And so we waited for that, and then now it feels like it's late. But since budget last year, we've had quite a few changes. And I think it's worth just sharing that coming out of a 23-24 school year, it was budget was kind of, I think of it as like a snowstorm, as a flurry, as things got taken away and added in. Things were missing. that needed to be added in. And so the district pretty much, the structure kind of shrunk back. And then we had some absences, and then we've added back as we've seen it need to be. And so, so there's been a lot of changes since budget. And, well, let's go through the financials first, and then I'll get into the detail. So, on the June 30th is the one that was in the packet. And that one really just codifies, what that ending fund balance was for 24-25. And the first page, your eyes should generally be drawn to it. The very bottom most number 1674706. So that's our final ending fund balance, for 24-25, and that's in the packet, not in the paper in front of you. Okay. And so what these reports are, I guess Celeste's not here, Andy's new here, so let's just go through the form of these reports that you guys get every month. So the first page, and I'm looking at June, is our state school fund, our general fund revenue sources. And
Stop you really quick. Which one are you looking at?
the
Just
one
so-
in the packet,
in the
the June
packet,
one,
perfect.
yeah. Yep. And so your eye is going to notice, first of all, at least for me, I see 24-25. I think something's wrong, but remember, this is last budget year. So the first blue column is the budget for those areas, or what was planned on the revenues. The second column is the year to date, or the actuals that actually happened. Or when you look at the next ones, there'll be projections in that blank column is the next one. So that's what we're anticipating. And then the total actual will be the combination of those two white columns there. So when we look at the next ones, and then the over under budget is basically whether it's over or under what we had in the budget. And going over budget and revenue is a good thing, just so you know. It's what we like to see, a little more revenue. And then the second columns, or the last two columns rather, reflect on the last complete year's budget. So just for comparability on that. And then at the bottom of that page, the last two hanging numbers there, the estimated requirements, that's the expenses. And then the estimated fund, or that should say ending fund balance there, is the fund balance, or the difference between those two numbers. Okay, so that's that first page. The next page is appropriation level. So when the budget committee and the committee and the board pass the budget, they do it by appropriation. These are those levels of appropriations that we want to make sure that we're within. And so you can see the appropriations in our general fund are 1,000s, 2,000s. There's if you look down to special revenue, 3,000s community services, that's our food service. 4,000, if you look down at our capital projects, that's when we are investing in building acquisition and construction. So that's what that is. And then support services as well. So depending on the fund, that's what that function represents. And so I will note that the transfers was over appropriation, and that was me when we did the budget rebalance in the spring. I swept that and used it. It's 0.08% of our budget, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. And the Department of Revenue doesn't have an appropriation restriction on transfers, so shows up as out of balance there, but it's not going to be an issue. So anyways, the second page is appropriation levels. The third page is by object, and object is just a representation of where we budgeted that money, what it's for, whether it's salaries, benefits, purchase services, or contracts. Excuse me, supplies and materials, other objects, dues and fees, and transfers contingency. And if we had reserve budget, 800 would be those. And so that's what that third page does. And then it's just a repeat of the appropriation level for the general fund. I'm sorry, the third page is general fund only. So that's the June one. Good news. We ended higher than we anticipated.
Can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
On that appropriations page, we were under budget on our general fund appropriations. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it again. I know we moved money does it make, I guess I'm confused at why we're under budget on that after we move stuff. Wouldn't ideally the appropriations be zero, or is that just the ending fund
So-
balance adding up?
So the appropriate, so when we have a budget, it's the capacity that the board is giving us to work within. So there we can go, let's see, how can I say this? So if it was too tight, we wouldn't have the ability to spend outside appropriation, or the ability to move things in between would be harder. But then the other extreme is, this is language used in the past, like we're creating a capacity budget, which means that you're giving us all the leeway in the world to spend money, and then we'll deal with the details. So there's a middle ground where we have enough capacity. So here's a great example. Our utility bills. So we're about $1 million on utilities that we've budgeted. We don't know what the winter is going to hold. We could spend that $1 million, or we could spend 700,000. But and I'll get to this in a sec here, but when we encumber that full amount of the funds, that takes up budget. And so it changes the budget picture for us. So when we do these financial reports on the encumbrance side, we're encumbering, I'll just say it now, encumbering, not a word I use every day. We're encumbering all of our transportation, all of our special programs contracts, all of our utilities. So we're making sure that those expenses are counted. We might come in under, but we need to make sure we have the capacity to make those payments throughout the year. And so again, there's that spectrum of a budget where we can make it too hard on ourselves, or we can make it too easy, but we want to be just about right. And what we see in last year's budget, if you look at the over under on page 2 at the top, we're pretty darn close to what our ending fund balance was at the end of the year. So that's a good sign. Did that answer your question at all?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can be wordy.
no, I guess I'm just making sure that that's obviously we want to be under instead of over. But that's just this is what we planned on and what we gave allowance for.
Mhm.
And that is what we originally did, or is that after we made our appropriations changes
Yep,
at the end of the
this is
year?
after.
Okay.
Yep. So I guess another way to say it is this is our spending authority. That's what it is. So we don't want it to be too high where we could overspend, or too low where we're restricted.
Thank you. And I would not, don't be surprised if I ask again in
Nope.
3 months when we go over one of these.
It's good. Okay, so that's the overview there. So now we'll go to the handouts that you guys have it's right here in a paperclip for September and October. Well, I'll do that after. So the two reports that you have, I forgot to say where it says the month. So at the very top, under general fund revenue 25-26, the first white column is the month end. So it says year-to-date revenue as of 9/30/2025. Excuse me. Right now we don't have a lot of new information on revenue. So it's going to be pretty much the same projection for September and October. But what I want to point out is the obvious, because you guys probably already looked at this, but if you drop to the bottom of September's, you can see that our estimated ending fund balance is almost 1.2 million. And then if you just stack your papers and you look at the difference between September and October, we've dropped to 200,000. And a lot of that is because of expenses due to bargaining agreements that take effect in that month, and that we finished our hiring during September. So the fund balance is going down for this year at this time. So what I want to point out though is that there's some of the things that did change over since budget season. And as we've worked through a lot of the issues that have come up and challenges, we've actually taken on an additional approximately $4 million in costs that we didn't have when we made the budget. However, through changes and identifying other revenues, we've identified over 3.1 million of offsetting activities to offset that. And some of those big things that are affecting our general fund trajectory are that we had some bargaining outcomes that ended up costing about almost 600,000 more than we had planned. We did add some staff for class size and some PE push-ins. And then another big one was our integrated guidance grants from when we planned, pushed $430,000 back into the general fund because those monies weren't what they told us during budget season, or what we went with. And those are the big ones. We have, when I do the financial report, I kind of look at the glass half empty. And so there are some positives that could happen here, but I'm not going to count all of them until I'm sure that they're coming. We need to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? So there are potentials for us to go higher. Well, honestly, I'm hoping to be above $1 million for this year where we're at here. We have some of the things that have come up in the year, and I was going to point out, when you look at this report, two things your eyes are going to be drawn to: the ending fund balance, and then the over under budget on pages 2 and 3. And so remember, we're bound by appropriation level, and so you can see that we're okay on appropriation level, but when you look at salaries on page 3 at the top for the general fund, you can see that there's a big chunk on salaries that looks like, wow, what were they thinking? Why did they get way over on that? Well, part of budgeting, there's a little strategy in there. We identified revenue or budget sources when we passed the budget that, for example, I wasn't going to put a 4% COLA on the license when we're bargaining with them. So we had it, not to be coy, but you know, if you give them an inch. Anyways, and so that one's off. And those, just so you know, there's reasons why it's high. So number one was the COLA, which is about $1 million. We added back another day that wasn't planned during budget, which was a salary wise about 150,000. Our additional licensed and classified staff was about 300,000. We had a couple high needs kids that came in that we had a 1-to-1. And then again, the SIA early literacy reductions were pushed in. And then we did have a couple recalculations, which are a little over $100,000 that a coding error during the budget process. So yes, that adds up to over $2 million very quickly. So what'll happen is since we're within appropriation, we'll probably move some budget around to make it better on the report, but we will be coming back probably in the early spring again for an adjustment on the budget as a lot of these things really hit and we see what's really happening. And so we're establishing a baseline for budget this year for change and to make changes from. Let's see here, make sure I got all the things.
The numbers underneath the 2 million, there's quite a bit of cash there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So on the over unders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're 1.2 million. We have $1.2 million of budget remaining. It's just as far as breaking it down between the objects, the 1s, 2s, 3s, and 8s. We have capacity. It's just not in the right object, I guess. Is that what yours?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, and which, okay, so what?
Page 3.
3 on which? On
In the
October?
in the over under.
Okay, the salaries. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the bottom line, if you go down to the bottom line, the positive number 1246540 is how much available budget we have.
Oh, hold on, that's September's, not October's.
Yeah.
It's the same on both because our
Not mine.
oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
1.877 versus
sorry.
1.2.
I was looking at September. Yes, yours is 877,894 because yes, that's right. Apologize. And again, just to point out again, one of the big differences this year versus last year is that if we in the past for personal services contracts or other contracts, encumbrances were just for those payments that were made at the time, and so the full amount of the contract for the year wasn't encumbered, which basically locks up that budget for future use. And we did do that, and they're all big things. So they've done our sped contracts, our utilities, and our transportation is probably the biggest encumbrance, which is over $5 million. But that's all in there for looking forward versus the monthly payments that would come in and show an actual, and then the next one would be the encumbrance. So that makes this this budget tighter, but more accurate as well. And then I will say that we have a December estimate of membership and revenue that's coming up that's due, where we report to ODE how many kids we got, what we're anticipating in our property taxes, which are starting to come in this month, and then our anticipated transportation costs, which are the three main drivers of our state school fund. So we'll have an update to them, but also that will be an update for us as far as where we are looking towards next year. And so as of November 1st, we're down 166 versus what we projected last year. It's not going to hit us this year. It hits us next year. And we're talking about 11,600 per student next year. It's a big number that we'll be looking at. But again, some of these things we're going to anticipate what they are, but we're going to communicate what that impact is moving forward. Questions?
Is there a way, because I know it's just now being the third year on this, and I know we've had change of leadership, change of CFO, change of, whatever. And is there a way going forward, these balance sheets are fine and these, but like calling out what you said verbally, is there a way you can put that on another piece of paper or something saying, we're over this, and explain why it is, and so we don't have to either write our own notes or go back and listen to the meeting?
I can create a summary and start putting it on the
That's
cover
fine.
sheet.
Yeah.
The hard part, and this is,
And I know it's not final,
Yeah.
things change. I'm just saying, just to help understand why, you're saying we swayed this way one way, but then like we found some other stuff over here. So it's not really 4 million, it's only now, whatever, and just.
yeah. And it's a lot of detail.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And the hard thing, and you guys can help me balance this, is what's too much information and what's the right amount, what allows you the information you want to know, but doesn't give you the temptation to dive too deep in the weeds, I guess. And I know you guys are coming off of some years of where things seemed okay, and then all of a sudden they weren't. And so there's some PTSD there, I'm sure. And so, yeah, please communicate with me and Dave about what you're looking for, and I'll do my best to give you the information you're looking for.
Thank you.
So Nate, you've also included a calendar here, and I think it kind of goes a little bit with you, Jeremy, which Nate's kind of laid out some times where you'll get financial information. And if there's some other things we want to add to it, it's meant to be a draft, but it's basically just a way to make sure that we can kind of systematize this.
And I have not been real clear on the protocol for this. Are we supposed to be reaching out to the budget committee members in our zone and asking them if they want to be certain? I guess that depends on if their term is up.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think Becky sent something out last week.
Oh,
I think we have. You guys see anything from Becky yet? Okay, I'll check with her on that, because we do have, I think, 2 budget committee members whose terms are expiring. But if you didn't get it, you will get it.
Okay. So then is it up to the board member then to invite? That was kind of a strange.
Not there was just applications, but we're just trying to target those zones that are up.
We'll get you information on what needs to be done.
Okay.
In past districts, we would reach out and see if they wanted to continue. But if we didn't have someone, then we would ship it to the board members, say, hey, we need to find somebody.
Okay.
Or we could do an open process too, either one.
Thanks.
I think kind of piggybacking off what Jeremy said, in terms of like a short summary bullet point list. I think for me as a learner, it would be helpful if we had sort of kind of key points that were repeated monthly or whenever the financial reports are submitted to us so that I know what I'm looking for and what changes to track. And if that key point, that key area says no changes from the last one, that's I think that would be helpful to me if we are sharing our learning needs.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that. I appreciate the numbers. The numbers don't make sense to me without a narrative to go along with it. So what I see in the numbers is in basically 4 months from July, August, September, October. Okay. In 4 months, we've gone through 46% of our ending fund balance. Yeah. We have an ending fund balance
So
now
I-
of
I
1.
don't think that's a linear operation.
But that's what I need.
Right.
Right. That's what I need. And why?
Yeah.
Why are we seeing that happening? You've explained that, but it would be really helpful to have that information alongside the numbers, because the numbers don't tell us that. Right. And if I'm a member of the public who has an appetite for numbers and I see this, I would want to know alongside that what stops. I mean, I'll use words that we've used in the not so recent past. What stops the hemorrhaging?
Mhm.
You know, like I have a budget for my home and I, blew a water heater. That money's got to come from somewhere. So what I hear you saying is what we're tapping into our ending fund balance for are the kinds of things that we would need and want to tap into an ending fund balance for. But I'm curious, like what can we say tonight to those who are listening that help folks understand that this isn't linear, right? What assurance can we give to say we don't anticipate more of this 905,000 that's left going out the door? And maybe we say, what's the worst case scenario? Like we could anticipate with some level of reality possibility that we might have to yet dip into that 905,000, right?
Yep.
That's what I feel like our responsibility is when we look at this.
Two things. One is, I think Nate said earlier that he's planning for the worst. So I think this is right now our worst case scenario. Now we have, the reason it's not linear is because of September when school starts and I have to push in FTE. That's the first bit of, we had the contract COLAs and benefits piece kick in. October is when we encumber all of the rest of the funds. And so that's why you've seen the September and the October change. It isn't linear because of those things won't happen for the next 9 months because that's not when they happen when we encumber these funds. The other aspects of it, we don't know where the state of Oregon is going on some pieces. Specifically, tomorrow is the next revenue forecast. And that's a really big one for us this year in that if that's significantly down, then what we're being told at the state level is the state's been doing planning about budget cutting and it would kick in. Now, we don't know, we haven't been told, but tomorrow that revenue forecast will be, we'll have our, COSA will be, I'm sure, be giving us kind of a briefing about where that's going to be. But that's going to tell us a lot about where we need to go next with this. I will also say the reason all of you, most of you have been to the boundary committee meeting, but there's also a reason why we're struggling. And it has to do with the structure of our current elementary system and our inability to raise class size there. In September, we set our class size. And then in September, we had to push in FTE because we had classrooms going over 30. And that situation is being caused by our current structure, specifically 4 schools that have 1 or 2 sections per grade level are creating problems for us in adjusting those class sizes. That's an issue for us and is going to continue to, our ability to kind of be efficient with our staffing, especially at the elementary level, is very restricted right now. And so I don't know where that's going to go yet, but that's why we're in the middle of this boundary, because of, for us to make significant progress. And there's some things have to change, or we have to get more revenue, one of the two. So we're going to have to figure that out.
Just to clarify, we needed additional FTE at the start of the year, not because we had an increase in enrollment,
No,
rather because we're out of balance
correct.
and we had to fix some class size issue. So we're trying to do more with actually less revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the point to make here,
Yeah.
that you just, to underscore what you just said, that the importance of this boundary committee work. Very, very important for us, because right out of the gate, right, we're working with less revenue.
Right.
We're held harmless because of the ODE funding formula. We get the higher of enrollment
Yeah.
numbers from last year, but we're kicking the can down the road
Yeah.
until we do something.
Yeah. And, but we don't expect, there will be some fluctuations with these numbers. There always are, with taxes coming in, and, but we do think this is where we expect that number to be. Now, last year, I think we ended the last May one, we thought it was going to be at 1.1. We came in at 1.6. I'm sure there will be some of that, but we're not going to count on that. We're going to give you estimates of what we believe, what Nate believes is the best guess at where we're at.
And the hold harmless, just to point out, it's the greater of your current year or your previous year. So when we talk about that 166 kid drop, that's next year. So we will see that next year, until we get that gap filled, we don't see an increase in per pupil, that really feeling that as far as growth goes with revenue.
That's what I mean by kicking the can down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
Did, I'm sorry, I know it's not printed. Do we have an update this month of student counts?
November.
What we had the first month and what
I
went
don't
up?
think I've seen it yet, but I'll get it and we'll push it out. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Nate, is there anything else you want to share?
Let me look at my notes here.
Or any other further questions for Nate?
Nope, I don't see anything. I think I got it all.
All right, well, thank you very much. Holly, you want to come on up and
Good evening. I actually have handouts. Do you guys need a quick break while I hand everything out? You guys okay?
anybody want a break? Okay, 5 minutes. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're coming back to order from our little break.
Thanks for having me. This has been an evening of long discussions, and I think we're going to keep the trend going. We're going to talk about OSAS from last year's performance. And to be totally blunt, we are so proud of what we have to share tonight. And we see some challenges and some hurdles. We see some systematic changes that we're excited to make. But we're doing okay. And sometimes okay is exactly where you're at. So here we are. If you could, yeah, oh, I'm controlling my universe. Here we go. Okay. We've got three main objectives this evening. One, we want to really celebrate our results, and we're very mindful this celebration is not just us as a district, but individual effort that teachers are making every day with their students. We want to wrestle with the data. There's some wrestling points for sure. And lastly, we want to point to programming that we have in the works to continue to fill the gaps. And to be blunt again, there always are going to be gaps, and we know that. So we have good work ahead of us. So our first point is to put the context of our district's performance in the situation of total comparables. So we have a cohort of 33 districts that are very like us. And sometimes the range is pretty epic by student number, location, socioeconomics, et cetera. But in 33 school districts that are, by ODE's description, comparable to us, this is where we sit, when we're the blue.
I was gonna say, so the blue dot is us.
That's us.
What's the maroon marker?
That is the median of score value of where a school performed. Yeah, so you'll see the range, and that's the whole dark gray. And then the shadowed bubbles are those other districts that I'm mentioning. So to put this in even more defined terms for you, if you look at the first page on your handout, and for those of you watching, this will be accessible to you if you need it, but here's the most of it in the slide. You'll see by color code, if you see the green, we have scored better this year than last year. And if you see the pinky color, we have gone down in value of overall score of all students, and you'll see the grade levels that this corresponds to. But then you'll also see the percentile of those cohort districts that I mentioned. So again, 33 districts, and you'll see where we land compared to them. So if you go down the whole list, we're number one, meaning for us type A's who love 100%, we're the first district in third grade ELA scoring out of 33 school districts. And again, that's not all districts in the state. Those are school districts that are comparable to us in size and the variables that we have with our students. We're also number one, I totally need my reading glasses, excuse me, in 7th grade math, 8th grade math. There's a very real reason I believe that exists. We'll talk about it in a little bit. And that is not only, again, the hard work of our teachers, but our teachers willing to do what it takes for our students to be ready for this type of assessment. And I see that coming through clearly in our math scores. Above all, we don't want anyone thinking that when we see proficiencies that are just at close to 50% under, close to 40% under, that is a gut punch for all of us. We would love to see those be in the 80s at the minimum, but that's not our reality. But I hope that you see by the other districts as our comparables, we're actually doing really well compared to them. And we strive to do better every single year. If you want to know the real of what does this mean, so the colors that we have, red would be below proficiency, yellow would be approaching, green is proficient, and blue would be exceeding proficiency. I do want to take a moment to point out our opt-out numbers. At the elementary level, we had 22 students total opt out of the whole district. We had quite a few elementaries that had no opt-outs. And I think that that speaks to the work of our elementary principals and doing their work, meeting with families and talking about why taking this assessment really is important. I know that's true of our secondary principals as well, but by that point you see an increase, a pretty exponential increase in opt-outs, 51 across both of our middle schools. By the way, all these numbers include COA. And then for our high school cohort, which remember, only 11th grade takes OSAS. So 83 students out of a cohort of around 300 kids opted out. So what you're looking at data isn't complete data for the actual grade of students that we have. And if you dive into who opted out, several of those students are our very high achieving students, but they're focused on AP tests, they're focused on SATs, they're not focusing on OSAS. And we understand, but we have to work on communicating the value of we need to see them in our data set to really see the full progress of our whole class for 11th grade. So now the background is our hearts are with Jamaica. By the way, Jamaica got destroyed by a storm, but the reason why you're seeing that cascade of color is because this is a very fluid measurement at all the time between our years, and I hope to show you that in the next slides that we have. We have some cohorts that are so small it doesn't register its own data point, meaning they're below 5%. Sometimes we have students that come in and they are incorporated into our testing, but they've only been in our system for maybe 4 months, but we still give them the tests. It's absolutely what we do. It's really, really hard to say that this is complete data that you're seeing, especially in consideration of our opt-outs and especially in consideration of the cohort of students who are kind of on the move often between school districts. So here's our students with disabilities. And you'll see the one uptick on either side. You'll see ELA and then math to the right. And that is our general student, all student performance without disabilities compared to those with. I just hope that everybody understands that kids who are finding a difficult time navigating, accessing just regular education, we still have plenty of kids that are exceeding proficiency. And I think that deserves a serious shout out. But as Dana and the teams that she has working on this, we are clearly working on identifying what ways do we create an accessibility within our classrooms. So more and more of their test preparation is driven by their choice or by their use of tools that they could then be using on OSAS. Not that they get to choose something else besides OSAS, but that they can navigate that learning experience for themselves really well. This is our limited English proficiency scores, and you'll notice that some of the years are missing because sometimes our cohorts are too small. And so I think both here and here, you're looking at historical information. This is about 10 years, and you're not seeing a massive shift in our numbers. That gives us a lot of hope because we have really specific things that we're going to be putting into place and have already started to do that. And I think that's one of the points I'd like to make about our middle school math when we talk about interim assessments here. But historically, we're bumping along, and we know that with some strategic moves, we could help unlock some success for our students, and that's what we intend to do.
Holly,
Yeah.
would you prefer questions at the end or as we go?
Kind of would, only
Okay.
because you guys are going to have a couple tools in your hands, and there's probably going to be some things I'm just going to have to bring you some answers back after tonight. Yeah. So our largest subgroups in terms of our racial groups are Hispanic Latino population and our multiracial population. Here's a look at their success and their struggle over the course of 10 years. And this is with math. And if you wanted to see Christmas on a page, to us, this is not, I mean, I could bring up all three of my colleagues over there, and it is, again, a massive gut punch. If we were to compare the state averages, however, with any of these focal groups, as you saw in Jillian's presentation, where we're double digits, well over what the state is experiencing, where we see buckets of terrible frustration and gut punch, we also see growth. Specifically, when you look forward to what is happening in our elementary years, and again, shout out to our elementary teachers who are managing all core subjects, test preparation, becoming good little humans who can stand in line and wait their turn. They are laying a foundation of success. You can see it And that is tangible growth that is very exciting to us. Again, we're not looking at the difficult spots that we see where, wow, we need to figure out more supports for kids in this area. We need to figure out an instruction. What are we going to do for this group of kids, this bubble of kids that we know is just encountering hardship all the time with this material? So this is already in your hand. It could take you a good solid day to unpack all of the parts and pieces. At the same time, I think it's very transparent of us to bring you at every grade level, at the demographics that we have and the focal groups that we have. This is how they're truly performing. I also want you to remember that the state is looking at our student growth. That's the measures that they assess for how are we progressing in the goals that we have in the programming that we're putting in place. And I want to remind you that we have clear proof that we are closing the gap for our focal groups. And you can see it in the red box. And Jillian had presented this before as part of our SIP program. So I just want you to see how all this actually truly works together so that we know on our end that the things that we can control within this learning environment, we are putting in the work where we're seeing some gains. And that is so exciting. So how do we use this? So this was last year. So there's a central reporting system that all of our administrators have access to. And this means that at their school level, they can go in and not only can they see their cohort of student performance, they can also drill down student by student. So they can see last year, this is how this student performed, or this is how this group of third graders performed. Then what's awesome is that all of those learning targets by the domain that we have, you're given how that group did. Were they at or near proficiency? Were they above or were they below? For our teachers, this is unlocking what of their learning targets did they hit? And they, in their normal programming that they're doing, they met the mark for that cohort of kids. And for other areas, what did they miss? Every year, though, an elementary teacher will tell you, well, I have a whole new group of kids this year compared to last year. And that's where looking at the standards, looking at what they had built in for their instructional practice, they can begin to tweak and to modify. And where our PLCs, our teams of teachers come together, they can relay, this worked for this cohort of kids. This group of kids is going to need so much more practice. And we begin to really drill down to how do we build in organically this practice that needs to take all year for our kids to do their best when they're given the opportunity to participate in OSAS? And just to be totally blunt, again, I've said that 3 times, we are not just educating test takers. Our kids will show you at our winter gala how they are phenomenal musicians. Our kids in The Wizard of Oz will show you that they can memorize, 120 pages of lines and not miss a single thing. Our kids will be the sweetest kids that are having the best time in our adaptive PE classes, but I said the wrong word. Our unified PE classes. That's what means everything to us. But because the state does recognize the importance of putting a challenging academic piece in front of a kid and seeing what skill set do you have, what skill set are you missing, what do we need to put into our academic programming, we take that very seriously as well. But I didn't want to water down, this is a piece of our education experience here in Newberg Dundee schools. And we do have the tools to bring this back directly to instruction, to change our instructional practice. And on that note, when we're talking about improving, we are still talking about improving everything for all students. We don't just look at focal groups and say, what can we do for this? Of course, we want the world for our focal groups and we want to build all the bridges that didn't exist for them before. But what we really want to focus on is strengthening UDL work, because truly that is building in for students who have identified learning disabilities, for students who are tagged, by building those practices and specifically targeting the students that you have in your classroom right now, coupled with the information that we have of the OSAS information from before. This we feel is the most effective way to teach the kids that we have and to teach them so well that they can find success. We also are super excited. We have the best teachers. And in our union, we have leadership that wants to partner with us to brainstorm how can we get kids motivated. You guys are 11th graders. Are you motivated this year? See, just conversations is all we need. Partnering with them and also strategically building up our local assessment program. That includes the interim assessments that I mentioned before. Just a shout out to MVMS. Those middle school math teachers administered, I want to say 40% of the whole state's interim assessments. They're early adopters. We can directly see an improved performance in those cohort of kids in OSAS last year from that work. And I believe that to be true. And the more that we get, interims guys are like practice test questions, but they're so structured. So it's like it's not a full practice test, but it's a practice experience. And it also gives real-time feedback to our teachers of how did those students learn that particular learning target so that they can have time to correct that in a learning cycle. So the kids are steadily moving towards proficiency on any particular target. All right. Now I'm ready for questions.
Director Byerly,
I got some.
take it away.
You could go first.
Okay. You guys remember that Far Side cartoon with the bear with the target, bummer of a bookmark? I sort of feel like that's where I'm at.
Might have earned it.
That's alarming.
Okay, I'm gonna lead with just a couple of things. First of all, Holly, this is exemplary use of state test data, right? It is system level, high level. It's part of the story, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
Mhm.
And I think what you've given us tonight is an exemplary use of what we want from OSAS data. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate the breakdown by focal groups. I agree with you that we're leaning into all students. What is also true is a lot of those focal groups are historically underserved. And so they deserve to be amplified. And so I appreciate that we can see Christmas on a page. The questions that I had were really back on the graphs that you were showing, just simply because my eyes are bad and I cannot read them.
Oh,
So
yes.
as a math teacher, as a math person,
Mm-hmm.
like axis labels are really important to me. There were a couple of graphs we looked at that had none. So I just wanted to make sure I back a slide.
This one.
Yeah,
So
I just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, so this is the same scale that you would see on any of these. But in order for me to put them all on a page, and again, the point was not to know the values of those bars of color. The point was to see historically the trends.
So is red level 1, orange
Yeah,
level 2? Is that
exactly.
okay? And then I think you said this, but the bar on the right shows the comparison of all learners.
That's students without disabilities, what their performance and as all students look like in the district.
I see.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just so we could see, like, we believe that all students can learn.
Yeah.
And all students can succeed. So clearly there's work for us to do to bridge more for our students who have a disability of one thing or another that they're navigating. And we hold the same standard that if our regular group of humans are not navigating a disability that we know of, plenty are, that we lean into what this group of students needs as quickly as we can. And UDL, again, because it's student by student, is one of the key ways that we're addressing that.
Great. So I'm sorry, now that I understand this, could
Yeah.
you just quickly click through these
Oh, sure,
slides
sure,
again?
sure, sure.
Okay, so this is showing us the same thing.
Same
but
thing.
we're-
Yep. And that line across is proficiency, is everything above the two green tones. And then a level 2, which is nearing or approaching proficiency. And a level 1, which I know that you know, but no other people might not know, is the red.
Okay. Awesome. That's helpful.
Mhm.
And then just another, I'll say this again because I feel like it's worth underscoring. When we look at ELA data, that is all of language arts. That's reading and writing and speaking and research. And so we need to keep that in mind when we look at our state test data next to things like our diagnostic assessments that are only reading. And so I'm going to keep driving that point home as we make sense of this, that writing is included here. And that's a critical component of, I think, what we're trying to do. And then the last thing I say before I turn my mic off is I just want to echo the amazing staff that we have in this district that are moving all students forward. We've gone through a lot in this community, and so to see our achievement continue to hold steady or increase is a testament to the people that are doing this work. And the fact that we're looking at more than just an overall proficiency rate, I know I am kind of emotionally tied to that slide in particular, but it's the right thing to do,
Yes,
right? We
it
can
is.
get so much more data than just overall achievement. And so I'm really happy that we're diving in and interrogating that data
Yeah.
and then taking actions and making that happen for our students.
Thanks.
I have some questions. I agree. You do a great narrative, but sometimes I had to like look this up and Google this. I'm like, there's different narrative styles, and I think you have a great author-driven narrative and a promoter in my mind, because you're like selling it, and that's great. But then at some points you're calling out, we look at this and we can see the positives out of this. But you don't tell us what you're looking at. You're just showing 2 slices of a Christmas tree, then I can't tell what you're doing.
Gotcha.
So that's just kind of a little bit feedback, and maybe when you're
Thank you.
throwing those examples out, call that out for me, because I'm a data analyst at heart. That's what one of my prior jobs were. So I'm looking at this out. I'm like, I don't see where I see some greens, a lot of oranges, and like I don't see where the positives you're talking about. So
Well, I also want to say I only use district level data.
sure,
I'm not going to put our individual schools up here.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
of course.
hard to talk about drilling down when we're talking district level. But if I do really appreciate that feedback, Jeremy, it's hard to be on this role when we know this much and you know that we've got this much time to talk about it. This is the Christmas thing that you're talking about. So
Mhm.
in all of those boxes, do you see that there's multiple double-digit numbers?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that's not true of the state.
okay,
And that's why, even though we're not going school by school, right, to
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at, so what is going on with that cohort of kids? The reason why I can easily say I am actually still thrilled by what I see here is because, again, when I went to this view where you see grades 3, 4, and 5, we are closing gaps so much faster. And what that
Gotcha.
means is for a kid who's then going to continue this kind of growth with the supports that our teachers are providing them, and as our teachers get more astute at how to build in that test prep in their instructional practice, this will probably ring true and start being the trend of that next grade level. That's why this is exciting, because you see grades 3, 4, and 5. Remember, we don't test in grades 1, 2, 3.
Right.
So when we see our first 3rd grade cohort come through and we see so much green and across focal groups, we're pumped.
Sure.
And then when we see double digit, even for some of our focal groups, well, the state average is 8% and we're seeing 23%, we're pumped. And I know, again, we don't want to say we're ever settling. We will never settle until all of our kids are so functioning in our schools, they're thriving and they can see that themselves in their own assessments. That's what we're going for. And we have a lot of work to do there. That's the part that absolutely that's the hard part. Like, this is the hard work, but we have to continue a positive culture. If all of those teachers didn't receive positive feedback for how they're changing student results just in those years, that would be on us as admin. And I don't ever want to make that mistake. So I'm not selling anything.
No,
I totally get
that's wrong.
the implied, like, a little missed positivity here, but this is awesome. And many districts can't say anything even close to this. So that's what I'm going to champion and say every day, all day long.
And I love it. And your spirit, I love it. And I'm not trying to, I wasn't supposed to be a derogatory comment. I just wanted to try to frame where I was coming from
Yeah.
in the way that I did. So the only other thing I'm going to challenge on a little bit is, I know you talked about the 83 students that in the high school level that opted out.
Right.
And you talked about, I would say, more of the, I don't know the right word, the right verb or whatever, the more fluent students in education that are maybe going to trend in their AP classes, whatever. But do we ask the like a survey every time they opt out of why they're opting out, or is that just a sampling of the kids you might know as you
Oh,
see it go through?
I'm glad you asked that question. I know that our principals have brought families in, brought students in to say, "Are you sure? Because we would really love if you would participate." But they can't do that for all kids, especially part of the problem, and this happened last year, kids would take the entire test and then a parent would submit an opt-out after it, and you have to invalidate that test.
But so at that point, we don't do a survey or anything of why we're opting out.
Normally principals are asking questions. We don't have a process though, or a procedure that we've captured. So we could put one in place and get feedback. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, sitting here as a board member, that's gonna be hard to say, and like, why the hell are you on the board? I sometimes question the OSAS type of tests. And I have not been a big promoter of them for my own students, and none of them, only one of my 4 children went to college, to 4-year college, right? And so I think there is an opportunity to gain understanding of why people are opting out. I understand it for the kids that are like highlighting from like honors or an AP side. Totally get it. They are overloaded, especially by 11th grade. But I think there's opportunity for us to gain understanding of why the other parents don't want it. And even maybe they didn't even realize their kids were in the middle of testing. And then they found out, oh, wow, I've been sitting in class for the last 2 weeks doing tests. And then all of a sudden that's when that parent submits that request, right? And so it'd just be something to maybe focus on over the next couple of years and learn more about. So
I think there's a really easy way for us. We can, basically, we do have the names. We know which students, and we have their schedules. We can just do a quick little Excel lookup and see which classes they're in. And then we can make some determinations. We could also look at past scores. So there's some easy ways for us to do this. I think it's an interesting idea. So I just wrote a note. We'll see if we can get some information on who our folks are that are opting out.
but other than that, great. I love it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this. I love the breakdown. I think one thing that my eye immediately goes to is if there's a really interesting, as kids go 3rd, 4th, 5th, they get a little bit better in all of these subjects. Then they get to 6th grade and there's a drop off. And I know I think I brought this up during one of the last presentations as well. I'm just really interested in what that is. Is it this transition period that there's so much going on as they move schools that is it? Is it there's such a jump in curriculum that is doing it? I'm sure, you guys are a lot more in the weeds. It's so interesting to me that it has that big of a jump, like math from 5th to 6th overall goes from 57.7 to 42.4. And then it gets a little bit better, sits in there for the rest of that. Same is true for math, 42.8 to 35.2. I'm interested, especially as we're talking about this boundary committee and looking at different models and potentially looking at having more transition periods. Is the transition period doing this, or is it more the curriculum, or is there even any clear way of knowing that?
Yeah, great question. My brain goes lots of different ways because it is a transition time. There are 2 different curriculums at play at elementary and then at middle school. But I think the good news, the more that teachers go back to this to refine their instruction year to year, the more that transition is less pronounced, that the work is built into the instructional practice for kids to be ready for those learning targets. So not to say that that's going to happen overnight. It will not. But I think that everybody's asking those questions, and that's the great first step.
Two thoughts. One is I love that ELA grade 3, that #1 ranking, feels good. But also I just want to call out the incredible work of our primary educators that are setting those students up for success. There's so much work that is done in K1-2, and for our 3rd graders to enter into this system with those scores is really incredible. And I love that. That should be, high fives all around to all of those people. I'm curious, in the student experience, other than, obviously we get like the parent letter, but what is the student experience with their own scores and student feedback loop? And what does that look like at the different levels, especially once we get up into the middle school and high school levels?
That is a great question and one that we have not built or leaned into enough. The scores do go home with the student at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But there's no reflection time with that I know of that is really coached along. So it's a full experience for the kid. That's an area for us to really look at.
Yeah, I would love to explore that. I know that would be a whole nother level of work, but I think when we are talking about the student, the intrinsic motivation and their desire to do well, and we can coach them along that path. But I think that for a lot of learners, seeing their own progress and their own results could be impactful.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, Jillian, I'm going to come back up and put the SIA agreement to.
So this evening, I am seeking a motion to have the board approve our SIA grant agreement with ODE. This approval is required by ODE each year for the grant agreement. You have the grant agreement enclosed in your packet. If there's any questions that I can support right now.
And there was no changes, right? I mean, what you presented last time is what we're approving now, right?
Correct.
I move that Sorry. I move that the Board of Directors approve the SIA grant agreement between the State of Oregon and Newberg SD 29J as presented.
Second?
Any further questions? We'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And is Celeste still on? I'm not Oh, okay. Well, then, the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your
Congratulations.
work on that.
A lot of hard work. You did a lot of good job. Thank you.
It's kind of funny that you've already approved this.
Right.
This is just boilerplate grant agreement, but it was part of the process. So we appreciate you helping out.
Okay. So then that brings us to the Joanne Austin facility use request. Nate.
Yeah. In front of you is the background on a request to use Joanne Austin for a year. Chehalem Christian Fellowship, nonprofit religious organization, wants to use it while they build a building. And so prior to the pandemic, they did use the Joanne Austin. And so they're familiar with it. And then Ben Burkhart, our basically facilities director, he's worked with them on the particulars, which are listed in the table on this. So we'll get some revenue from it as well. And so any use longer or any long-term use, it needs board approval per our policy.
So are they saying they're going to be using the gym, cafeteria, and classrooms, or is that just a breakout of estimation? I'm unsure exactly like what they're asking to be done.
Yeah, so Ben and Leslie Carsley and the representatives walk through, and they're trying to use the areas closest to the common areas. And so not all of the classrooms, but the ones that are near the cafeteria, commons, and entrance areas. The music room for nursery, that kind of thing. So
Do we have concerns with the music room?
no. Yeah, we made sure that they went through with Leslie, the principal over there, and walked through. So,
Okay.
and they were responsible before.
Right.
They've been there for 2 weeks so far, and I've heard no complaints. They cleaned up after themselves, took out the trash, that kind of stuff. So
I move that the Board of Directors approve the facilities use request submitted by Chehalem Christian Fellowship for use of Joanne Austin ES on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. beginning November 9, 2025 through November 2026 under the terms outlined in Board Policy KG and Administrative Regulation KGAR.
Second.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I wasn't quite done with my question, but that's fine.
Okay.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. This is why we have this opportunity.
This is
Um, One thing, I guess, because I've used facilities as a coach before and I've broken a window.
Oh.
So what I don't see is what happened, I'm just being open and honest here.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Cover the cost
happened?
of it.
Yeah.
What I don't see here and why I'm saying music, and I know it's not a music classroom of like, say, the high school where you have all these $1,000 instruments. But what I don't see anything about incidentals. What happens if there's something happens?
Yeah, so we would initially, obviously, if something happened, we'd bring it to their attention and ask them to remedy it. But also, as any of our facility rentals go, we ask them to provide insurance. So if for some reason they're like, no, we're not paying for it, then we have their insurance policy, and that's where we go.
Okay. That was it. Thanks.
I have one more question, actually. When we look at the rates that they're paying us, the motion that is before us is through November of next year,
Mhm.
right? So that spans a fiscal year. So are the cost, the rates that we've agreed to, do those consider sort of what might happen at the change of a fiscal year in terms of increase, or do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the sentence at the very last sentence there, all fees will be assessed according to NDPS's facility use fee schedule.
Mhm.
So it makes me believe that if we change the fee schedule, we would just update. These are the numbers. This is the current fee schedule.
Yep.
But that piece right there makes me believe that we could update them.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and so then Chehalem Christian Fellowship they see that same thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, we'll make sure they see it now. I mean, yours is a good question, but I do see we've got some language in there that allows us to do that.
Mhm. Okay, we have first and a second, and we're in the question mode. Any further questions? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously, well, 6-0. Okay, folks,
Thank you.
that concludes the entertainment portion of our meeting. Let's talk about the good stuff. What's going on? Starting with the students. We're gonna start this way and we'll end with Dave. Anything you want to talk about?
So as most of you know, the play wrapped up. That was awesome. We had two shows the Saturday, so the matinee and the closing night, that were within 5 seats of selling out, so that was awesome. Moving forward, we have 2 performing arts concerts this week. We have the band concert tomorrow at 7 p.m. and the orchestra concert on Thursday, also at 7. Upcoming, we have the Winter Gala, which was mentioned previously. That's our biggest event of the year, so we'd love for all of you to come. It is December 17th. It begins at 5:30 with small ensemble concerts throughout the building, with the main concert beginning at 7. There's an auction with various baskets that have been put together by students, so it should be awesome. Please come. The Ewing Young Holiday Bazaar is coming up this Saturday. We have a choir group going to perform and an orchestra group going to perform. We did this last year and it was super fun, so we're looking forward to that. Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of updates, but Newberg Key Club just hosted a fundraiser for UNICEF and we raised around $160 through a Key Club organization. We were supposed to do, it's called Trick or Treat for UNICEF. So all the clubs are supposed to do some sort of fundraiser to raise money to help support education in Uganda. And we also just partnered with Sherwood Key Club as well to help tear down invasive ivy down a Sherwood trail. And we're currently making little goodie bags to give out to students during finals week to just say, like, you got this. That's all I have.
Well, I'll segue in. That finals week, I want to just say good luck as students face finals coming off of the Thanksgiving break. Congratulations to everyone who's involved in music, performing arts. It feels like kind of wrapping up a fall season, if you will. I also want to say congrats to our fall athletes who have wrapped up a season. Many sports students saw playoff competition or state competition. It's excellent. So I'm appreciative of the coaches and the community for rallying around students there. And I just will say, we're in a time of year where we're heading to the holidays, and it's a time of rest. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of gratitude. And I just hope our students and our families find spaciousness in that. So that's all I've got.
You all right? Gosh, so many of the same things to say. I wanted to call it specifically at the evening that I went to see The Wizard of Oz. Obviously incredible, so enjoyable, loved it. One of my favorite parts was intermission, watching all of the middle schoolers. It was like the middle school social event of the season. But Cole, you and your bandmates like entertained them, and you answered so many of their questions, and you were just so accessible to the students who I feel like really felt like they got to like peek behind the curtain to the music. But I just really appreciated that. I thought that you and your crew were just so gracious and enthusiastic. And I know that my son and all of his friends really enjoyed it, but that was just a very cool, like, community building portion of the evening that I liked, that I was just sitting up in my little perch observing. Saw the announcement that winter sports are kicking off, so good luck to all of them. And then I also just wanted to echo all of those students that are preparing for finals, and also just really working hard to monitor their grades and monitor their assignments. There's so much work that happens these last couple of weeks of the trimester, and I'm just sending good vibes out to all those students and also all the teachers and parents that are trying to wrangle all of those loose threads. And yeah, enjoy Thanksgiving. I'm so grateful to serve this community that I love so much, and I'm grateful to serve alongside all of you guys, and just sending out good thoughts to our little community here in Newberg.
Well, I so enjoyed The Wizard of Oz. Oh my gosh, that was such well, every performance, Nancy Woodward and I always are going to them, and we had so much fun with The Wizard of Oz. The dog was Toto was just,
Oh yeah.
it was so funny
So
to me.
good.
I don't know, it was really funny. And then thank you to the Key Club for helping out at Halloween, because Ashlyn was downtown for downtown trick or treat and helping with safety on the street corners as kids can go back and forth. And so that was really great. I just wanted to do a shout out to the Special Olympics kids that had the swim meet. I didn't get an opportunity to attend, but it just like looked so much fun. And I know that some kids are advancing with that. And then we do have the Ewing Young Bazaar. That's really fun. If you guys haven't been there, the kids, there's lots of stuff for little kids to do. And then one thing that's also happening this weekend is the Joy Youth program is having a performance on Saturday. So I'm going to celebrate my birthday and go to that as well. So have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was actually sad I didn't make it to Wizard of Oz. I was planning on to reunite with my Munchkins. 34 years ago, I was a Munchkin in the play. So,
Just see a picture of that.
actually, and then one scene I was one of the monkey guards or whatever of the castle. What, I don't know. So, but it brought back memories. I wish I could go. Just life changes, and I couldn't make it. So I'm sad. But I do definitely want to hit the Winter Gala or holiday, whatever you guys call it nowadays. Always enjoy that. So it's always a go-to every time, and support, and hopefully buy a basket. Good luck on tests and your finals. Yeah, winter fall sports are over. Went to see a couple of those playoff games. Looking forward to winter sports. So that's pretty much it.
I'll echo that Wizard of Oz was a really fun thing. Got to bring my elementary school students who were all my daughter was, I want to be one of those when I'm older. I want to be one of those. And also they got to go down to the pit and see the action happen. So that was very fun for them. I also just wanted to shout out to the boundary committee team going on. It's been really awesome to see everybody get together and have some difficult conversations, but have an open space where those things can happen and try to hopefully figure out this difficult math equation and do something about that. Yeah, good luck to everyone with finals. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday season.
Just wanted to echo the Special Olympics, actually they're getting their awards on November 20th. So Thursday in Sherwood at Langers. So there may have been someone that signed up for some overtime to hand out those awards, since get to kind of wear both hats there. But yeah, so they're doing that. They're coming out. Shout out to Karen Lang from Ewing Young for setting that up. So they're, if anyone else is coming, they're having their end of year awards and bowling awards. It's I think 6:30 on Thursday. Langers and Sherwood.
Perfect. Tonight, I wanted to just give an update on the boundary. I know many of you have been to several of them already, but just for our community to kind of make sure, I sent out a communication yesterday that kind of talked through this, because there's some concern about when the decision's going to come in front of the board. So I just wanted to go over a couple things. The core challenge here, we talked about it earlier, is a fundamental draw on the ending fund balance is staffing costs. It makes up 82% of our general fund. And so how we manage our staff has a big impact on whether or not we're going to be sustainable long-term. In our current configuration, we have 4 small schools that have 1 or 2 sections per grade level. That creates a real challenge for us to adjust our class size. The structure doesn't allow us to raise those class sizes, it forces the allocation of FTE and keeps us from being sustainable. To eliminate the furlough days next year, it's going to be about $1.25 million, 250,000 per furlough day, about. We've got PERS in 2 years. There's some increases coming. We've got other financial pieces going. So we need a pretty significant amount of money going into next year. All the while we're saying the state of Oregon is not they're going to fund us less money. The revenue is tightening. So all that said, we have to have an efficient organization. That's something, or we have to come up with more revenue. One of those two things has to happen. So the committee has come together to start looking at all of this data and begin to analyze and figure out if there are other structures or boundaries that we could move that will solve this problem. No decisions have been made. No structure has been agreed to yet. But the committee will try and narrow this down to 1 to 3 kind of situations. And then we will take that out to schools, to staff, to parents, to talk about this. So because we have education that we still have to do here. And then at some point, it's going to come back to this board to make a decision about where we need to go. And so I just wanted to get it out there that I think there's been a worry that it would go straight from the committee to the board and it would be voted on, and before people had a chance to, 1, learn why we're thinking about this, and then 2, what are the reasons? Why is this the model or models that we're thinking about? So still quite a bit of work to do on this. It's complex, it's emotional, it's disruptive by nature. All of these things mean that we have to be communicating and transparent about this, and that's what we'll continue to do. I'll continue to push out kind of after we have a meeting, what happened in the meeting. We'll post up information to the website. Some of it's there. I'll get the other slide sets of what happened in the other meetings. I don't think we have all of those up yet, but I will get those up so that, and like I said, we'll bring it all back to the community before we're done. So that, and one other thing, so this Friday, I think the at a glances come out. Is that okay? Couple of things we didn't talk about today too. When you look at the high school at a glance, what you'll notice is our grad rate this year is 91%. I don't think I've ever worked for a district that had 91% as their grad rate. Our ninth grade on track also went up. And so there's some really good numbers. There's still some challenging numbers out there too. So I don't want to not pay attention to the fact that we have more work to do. But those are two numbers that, again, you can look at and say, no, good things are happening in this district. Mark will be talking more about it. We have a communication going out on Friday to the staff and community that'll talk a little bit about OSAS and then also talk about some of these, the grad rate pieces. So that's, again, just really great work by the high school and the work that Tammy and Mark and the staff have done around connecting with kids. And then I think I got what's the? Oh, it was on the minutes?
These are my notes.
Okay.
But when I write them on, that have a conversation.
On the back. It's on the.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
That's right.